My name is Nahre, and in this video, I'm going to share with you everything that is possible with arpeggios. I'm going to start first with the simplest form applied to a basic chord progression and gradually increase the difficulty to the absolute maximum. We're going to climb up 13 levels of difficulty, and as I'm doing this, I'm also going to share with you my best tips in terms of practicing and utilizing these arpeggios so that you can become fluent with them in any scenario. This video is sponsored by Spitfire Audio, and I'll be using their new BBCSO piano library throughout the video. So an arpeggio is basically a broken chord. A very famous example of this is Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Now let's do something similar using our chord progression. Now let's play these arpeggios in the left hand. You can break up the chord in any direction. I'm going to use both hands now for the next one and play a broken chord in each hand going up the octaves. A famous example of this is Beethoven's Emperor Concerto. This one sounds a lot harder than it actually is because you're using both hands and you're not shifting positions within each chord, so it's actually quite easy. Now, utilizing the same notes of these chords, I'm just going to rotate around. A quick tip for fixing sloppy sounding arpeggios. Often it's a matter of inconsistency in terms of volume and speed. So sometimes I'll notice pianists just rolling across these chords. And for pianists, this happens often when you're utilizing too much of your wrist without actively engaging each finger and fingertip. This doesn't mean that you have to lift each finger very high. The difference will be felt more than is noticeable visually. Just remember to engage your fingertips. This next one is a pattern that I use in one of my own compositions, Empty Rituals, and I've also shared an exercise based on this piece on my channel. I'm going to repeat pairs of notes as I fan outwards. Now we're going to move on to the multi-octave arpeggio. We're going to play the notes of the chord across different registers. A quick tip about these arpeggios, it always helps to visualize the actual notes of the chord so that you can spot the pattern and understand it as a whole rather than single notes at a time. Now with any chord, we can invert them by taking the bottom note and applying it to the top. So now we're going to play broken inversions. The third movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata is a famous example of this. In order to increase your accuracy and speed with arpeggios, utilize anchor points. For example, pay attention to the notes played by your thumb. As your thumb is repeating these notes, it's really important to listen to these pitches as well so that your physicality and your listening are in sync. When you practice these, it really helps to play the block chords first. So now let's do something similar using our chord progression. For this harmony though, I think a higher register will be better. Here's another variation. By the way, as you can hear, the piano sounds like I'm in a massive space with a giant concert grand. Well, I'm actually in a very small apartment room using a digital keyboard, but using the BBCSO sample library, I can achieve this grander sound. The sounds for this library are recorded from a live Steinway D concert grand at the iconic home of the BBC Symphony Orchestra, Maida Vale Studios, which has also been the host to the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, David Bowie, and countless film scores. There are 3 versions of this library, and you can find the one suitable for your needs. With the professional version, you can adjust settings such as reverb, tightness, pedal volume, and hammer volume. It's ready to play straight out of the box with 2 expertly curated professional mixes to choose from. You can further adjust the mic placements and fine-tune the sound with a host of other settings to cover a wide range of sonorities. So thank you so much to Spitfire for sponsoring this video, and now let's move on to the next level. Broken blocks. Here's an example from Debussy's Les Joyeuses. What's unique about this pattern are the repeated notes. Now we're going to apply it to the chords. To make this run a little more interesting, you can also play 2 notes at a time for one within the pattern. This next one comes from Schubert's Impromptu number 4. You're doing a turnaround on a chord and doing that to descending inversions of that chord. This next one comes from Lis un Sospiro. What makes this interesting is that you are playing that basic arpeggio line going up and down, but also the melodic figure using both hands. This next one is one of my favorite patterns, and it comes from Chopin's Opus 10 number 1. So this pattern has a 4-note grouping that is larger than an octave. So when you repeat it, there's a little bit of an overlap, which makes it very interesting. A common problem that occurs when you play a lot of arpeggios is to have tense arms and wrists. In order to avoid this, find any opportunity you have to relax the entire hand. When you're transitioning positions, when you're turning around, these are all great moments where you can ease up the tension. This next one really scares me. It is based off of Godofsky's versions of the Chopin Etudes. You're playing the pattern from Chopin's Etude in the right hand as well as the left hand. And when you combine these, it becomes kind of a nightmare. So let's try it with these chords. Take 1870. So if you made it this far, I'm happy that you stuck around, and you're probably wondering, okay, where do you go from Godofsky's version? Well, I wasn't lying when I say that the last version will be impossible. I'm actually going to write something that is impossible for any pianist to play, and I can do this because I have the technology to do so, and so I will program it and see how I can really maximize the use of arpeggios. So these notes are definitely not playable by any pianist, even if they have amazing technique and massive hands, because these intervals are just not physically possible. And to boot, I'm going to make it really fast and adjust the tempo so that it doesn't sound too robotic. Let's add some reverb and adjust the tightness, and here's what it sounds like. So So as you can hear throughout this whole video, the difficulty level of arpeggios does not correlate to how good the music sounds. This is just a simple experiment to see how far I can push it. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again to Spitfire for sponsoring this video. Thank you to my patrons on Patreon for your continued support. Thank you all for watching and subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.